Goobers, we're having some trouble with the boat, and I know you're having the same problem too. It's an issue. It's got to do with the trailer. Carpet just does not belong on a boat trailer. Now here's what some of the brackets and bunk boards were looking like on my boat. These were some of the brackets, rusted to all crap. Carpet was falling off of some of them, wood splitting. Look at how bad a shape these are in. They're just nasty. These are the top sides of some of my bunk boards. Carpet starting to rip, bolts coming through. This was completely gone, so the boat was sitting on top of that, rubbing on these metal bolts. That's just not happening. This was one of my bunk boards, and look at that, broken right in half. And a lot of these issues are because this carpet holds so much moisture that there's just no chance for this wood to dry out. So I started looking around, and there's some tough bunk boards, composite bunk boards, but they are pricey. Unless you're just looking to light money on fire, those are probably not the option. So I figured, you know what? I can make something myself that's gonna shed water, not get it soaked into the wood, and they're gonna last a heck of a long time. But before we get into all that, we've got to hit the hardware store and make a couple purchases on Amazon. I've got a lot of links down below for some of this stuff if you're looking to pick it up and make the last bunk boards you'll ever put on your boat trailer. We're gonna basically revamp this whole entire trailer. We're gonna measure our bunk boards, check our lengths. We've got 71 inches and 133, so I'm gonna go buy some wood to replace that. We're gonna paint them so they look sharp. We're gonna seal them so they don't rot, and we got something else cool that's gonna happen to them as well. While we're at it, we're gonna go ahead and replace the brackets, the bolts, the washers, the nuts, everything. This is gonna be a fresh start. Let's get to it. We got our 2x4s cut down to size here. We've got 2 at 12 feet and 2 at 6 feet. So we've got 2 main runners on the trailer and 2 secondary runners. We're gonna take that Rust-Oleum paint and primer, got it in satin, blue to match the boat, and we're gonna hit these bad boys right now. Shake it up, let's get rocking. Now this is a totally unnecessary step, but I'm just thinking about how good that's gonna look and how happy I'm gonna be that I took the extra 5 minutes to spray paint these bad boys before I seal them up. Have 2 coats on there, let them dry for about an hour, 20 minutes between coats. Now I gotta flip them over and do the back sides. All right, we've got 2 coats on there, and just in case you're wondering, to cover 36 feet of 2x4s, it took 2 full cans to do 2 coats of everything. We're gonna let this dry for 24 hours before we move on to our next step. This next part gets a little messy, so I've got some shop towels laying around in a solo cup. We're gonna use some fiberglass resin to waterproof these boards. I'm gonna try and fit about 1/4 of a can of this resin in the solo cup. That might have been more like a half. And then to get it activated, I'm gonna use about half the tube of hardener right here. All right, then we need to stir that up and we can get to spreading this on our boards. Get that all mixed in there real nice. Make sure you're doing this in a well-ventilated area. This stuff is potent. Nothing about this project is particularly hard. All I'm gonna do is paint this resin on now, make sure I coat it all. I did lift my boards up with some 2x4s underneath so I can get a little bit of clearance. Helps me get around the edges. Also make sure it's not gonna stick to the bottom of the cardboard down there. So we're just gonna coat this whole thing, top, sides, bottom, edges, get a nice waterproof seal on here. And this stuff takes some time to cure. Box says about 2 hours. I'm gonna let that go overnight. We let our paint dry overnight, let this resin dry overnight. I'm in no rush to get these bunks done. I wouldn't say this step is 100% necessary. I mean, I wanna do a nice job on these bunks. That's why I took the time to paint them. I'm gonna take the time to resin them, try and waterproof them a little bit, make them last a little while longer. Full disclosure, I'm probably not even gonna own my boat that much longer, but I wanna make sure these bunks aren't gonna give the next owner any issues when they buy it from me. I figure if I'm gonna take the time to work on this project, I might as well do a nice job with it. There we go, fully coated, tops, sides, ends. Just gotta flip them over and do the bottoms, but I'm gonna let that cure for a bit, at least a couple hours, and I'll check back. If it's tacky, I'm just gonna keep waiting until it's fully cured. And in case you're wondering, I've gone through half a can of this so far, and I've probably got to do at least a half of what's left. I'll probably mix up the whole other half and just coat the sides again, but I still got to do the undersides of all this. So you go through quite a bit of resin pretty quick on here. But be liberal with it. You want to make sure you get every nook and cranny, make sure it's all watertight. Here we are about 6 hours later, got a real nice waxy finish on that. Still have a couple spots that need to dry, but we're definitely at the point where we can flip this over and hit that bottom edge. That's the last piece we have to do. Get those all flipped over and sealed. Now friends, keep in mind this stuff is gonna harden up and absolutely destroy your paintbrush, so think about how many applications you might want to do. I picked up a couple extra paintbrushes just in case. So I'm probably gonna be done with one more, but we'll have an extra if I gotta go back and touch anything up. New cup, new brush, same process as before. Right back where we started. Crank up the tunes and crank it out. All right, all coated up, all sides covered. Use a little bit that was extra, kind of go over the ends, go over the edges, look for any dry spots, look for any pits in the wood. Like this edge right here is not the greatest. Probably can't see it on camera, but got in there real good, made sure that crack was filled, and I'm gonna let this bad boy sit overnight. and come at it tomorrow. Working on finishing up these boards here, you can see that hopefully it's picking up on the camera. Some of these drip edges are kind of sticking up a little proud of the surface. So all I'm going to do with those is take a little sandpaper and knock those down. Just work on them a little bit. Time and patience here. You don't want to crack them off or you'll get right down to the wood underneath and you'll have to kind of start all over with the process there. So just take your time, sand them down. A little coarse sandpaper. Don't bust through the whole finish. Just knock down those ledges. And you don't have to be perfect. You'll see what we're going to do next. This is also a really good time to pick your battles. Get one side really nice and smooth. Look along the edges. Knock all those down. Don't worry about the bottom. It's going to be at the bottom of your trailer bunk. It's not a big deal. I mean, if you want to get perfect with it, go for it, but it's not going to matter. Now, here's the part this project is all about. I've got these bunk slides here from Novino. Slick bunk slides. Kind of been working towards this the whole project. We're going to have some marine goop going on here. I've got a 7/64" drill bit. And what I did is I took the hardware that comes with the Novino set and I lined that up with the screw just to make sure it's the proper size. And I set it at the depth of the screw, so I know pretty much how deep I need to drill that pilot hole. We're going to look through this whole box right here, and there are 4 pieces that are end pieces, which have these little lips on them right there, so we're going to start with those. Now, real simple process from here. Take the lip, hang it over the edge, line it up where you need to, drill your pocket holes, and go to town. Now, the directions do say to tighten these by hand, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm also going to take one more step. I just went through all this trouble to waterproof these boards. I don't want any water seeping in those holes. So I'm going to coat this with a little bit of marine goop before I tighten that down. And that should help seal everything up. It's also going to help that screw from backing out. The last thing I want is those to back out and to scratch the bottom of my aluminum boat. Now the nice thing about this setup is that screw is underneath flush mount here, so the boat's never going to scratch that. I've got it set up with that marine goop right there. That thing should not rattle loose on me at any point. Now, as far as spacing is concerned, I couldn't get away with just 3 on this board right here. The product recommends spacing them between 12 and 18 inches apart. So that is way too long right here. We're looking at up over 20 inches of gap there. So what I had to do is put 4 on these shorter boards, and I spaced them at 10.5 inches apart. And on my longer ones, I put 6 boards, and I spaced those right at 17 inches. So if you've got boards with similar lengths to mine, that's going to work out nice and to use the entire kit. So we are right out here. Throw a screw in each one of those and we're on to the next step. Well, now we got this boat over at the boat ramp. We got to get this thing in the water so we can work on that trailer. Alright, so as you can tell, some of these were in pretty rough shape. This one's broken in half. I can't get these brackets over here to sit straight, so we're going to replace all that stuff, including the brackets. Some of them are pretty beat up from launching some brackish water and everything. One thing to keep in mind as we're setting these up is there are some lips on the end of these. That one end is an end cap, so we're going to make sure those are towards the back. So 1, 2, and then 3, 4 over there are all towards the back. Another thing I'm going to take note of is that these are all pretty much in line across the back, so I'm just going to take one off and replace them as I go to make sure I can keep that alignment and I don't have to guess once I get them all off. We're going to start with this big boy right here. He's going to match up with this one. I also know from the shape of the hull that these kind of sit the same way. So once I replace this one, I'll try and match the angle over here, and then I'll swap and do the other one. So up under here, we've got a crescent wrench. We're gonna go in the front. I've got this bolt sticking through, so I gotta be careful of that. And in the back, I've got a 9/16 socket wrench. So this is why we're replacing everything. These brackets are in rough shape. All the hardware is in pretty rough shape. We're gonna start over with fresh stainless steel. These are looking all right here, so that's not too bad. All right, this whole thing's gotta go. And now we put this new one on. We're gonna have to put the brackets on too, but just to get an eyeball of where things are gonna go and make sure it lines up here so everything's all nice and flush. We're gonna put on some brand new brackets here, and we're gonna attach these to the trailer with a little bit heavier stainless steel hardware. Since I went a little bit heavier duty on my hardware, I did have to drill out my braces on my trailer here, so now they fit all right. We're gonna get that nylon lock nut on the back, and then just tighten that down. We're not going to go all the way because we are going to have to adjust the pitch of our bunks to match the other side, but we're going to get all 3 of these brackets on first. Okay, we snugged it up just enough so we can still change the pitch on that trailer bunk, and we'll really snug it down once we figure out exactly where we want it. We're going to do that same thing on our middle and our front trailer brace as well. All right, so now we got all 3 of those braces on there. We're going to get this lined up. We're just going to set it on there to start. We're going to make sure that we're nice and flush on the back here and position this and center it. Our 2x4 is the same width as the bracket, so we're pretty much good here. Now these brackets here, we have 2 different holes we need to use here. We're gonna use some lag bolts for that. And before I put these lag bolts in, I'm gonna drill a little pilot hole here. That'll help me drive this lag bolt in a little bit better. We're gonna snug these down pretty good here. Now that we've got that pretty snug, we're gonna go up towards the front and get that alignment straight. We're gonna run all the way up to this front brace and get that one started, so that's gonna keep our board from sliding off. Pilot holes again. And a lag bolt. Probably guessed already, but we're gonna do the same thing in the middle. Now that bunk board is fully attached, we can change the pitch of it. We're just gonna take a look at this one and try and match it the best we can. So it's definitely not perfectly vertical, but that looks about the same as the other one if I back up and take a look at them. So we're gonna come back in with our socket set there and tighten those bolts down, all 3 sets. And we're really gonna crank down on these so the weight of the boat doesn't move them. Now all we've gotta do is repeat that process a few more times. We got another long board and 2 short boards on the side. We'll get back to you when we're done with all that. And just like that, we got some new bunks on the trailer. You're lucky that we did this in YouTube time for you, because even though it's a nice cool day, we're still nice and sweaty out here. So definitely keep that in mind if you're gonna do this project for yourself. Nothing left to do but dunk this thing in the water and see how the boat comes up. Really do need to be careful with these slicks though, because they are gonna be really slippery on the bottom of your boat, especially if you've got an aluminum boat. So make sure, especially when you're launching, you don't unstrap your winch too soon and let that thing go sliding off onto the ramp. Nobody wants to be that guy. And now after you use it, you want to double check all your boards. Like this one, I probably got to go back and tweak a little bit. So I got to remember next time my boat's off the trailer, I got to loosen those up and upright that a little bit. This side's looking real pretty over here, sitting nice and flush on those. Perfect. Now guys, the best part about this whole thing is look at these boards. They're already drying off. No water's going to hold on that carpet because there is no carpet. These things haven't even been in the water and they're just holding tons of moisture. They're all nasty. That wood is disgusting and rotten. And I replaced one of those about 2 years ago and it's already rotten and snapped. So we're gonna throw these in the boat, get them on the trailer, take them home and get them chopped up and disposed of. Thanks for watching that video, guys. I hope you're happy with how those turned out. I know I sure am. This is Captain Dan, Goober Time Guide Service. In the next video, we're gonna be replacing these straps right here. So you're definitely not gonna wanna miss that one. Subscribe and like so you don't miss it.